Everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review, and today's review is in association with JediInsider.com, your #1 news source for everything Star Wars. And today we're going to take a look at the final new figure in the third wave of Hasbro's 6-inch Star Wars The Black Series, Obi-Wan Kenobi from Episode 2. Now, like with all the figures in the Black Series, this figure comes in a standard window type box packaging. Up at the top you have the Black Series logo. You have a little small medallion image of Obi-Wan Kenobi from Episode 2. Then underneath that you have the figure displayed in the packaging. And then underneath that you have the name of the character along with the designated number. This is number 10 in the Black Series, 6-inch Black Series. On the one side you have a window box so you can see the figure from the side, or you have a window display so you can see the figure from the side. And then on the back we have a picture of Obi-Wan from Episode 2 holding his lightsaber, and then above that we have a little brief bio for Obi-Wan and the Star Wars logo. And then on the side we have the orange Death Star type lighting border, which is also on the front. Okay, so let's get the figure open and take a look at what's inside. Here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. Now, the face sculpt, the sculpt itself I don't think is too bad. The problem with the face is the eyes. I've kind of dubbed this paranoid Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know what's going on with the eyes in this series, but they seem to be having some real difficulty getting the eyes right on these figures lately. With my figure, I mean, I don't know, Obi-Wan just looks like really like he hasn't had sleep in days or something. He's like really paranoid or something. So it really throws off the entire look of the face, which otherwise I think is a pretty good sculpt. The beard is sculpted on as we saw in Episode 2, and he's got the Episode 2 haircut and everything. And then he's got his robes with some nice washes to give it kind of that worn look. And then he's got the belt with his little pouches and stuff on it, which is nice. So good detailing there. And then on the bottom half of the tunic, they've used soft goods, kind of like we saw with Darth Maul on the sides. And then on the front, we've got the soft rubber type material. And then underneath that, we have a layer of soft goods as well on the front. So I like the overall look of the figure, except for the eyes. Again, I don't know what is up with the eyes, but they really just, and this isn't the first figure. I mean, the Bespin Luke's eyes were a little off. Slave Leia in the last wave had some kind of funky eyes. So it just seems to be something that they're kind of struggling with as far as the sculpts goes with the eyes. So this figure comes with one accessory only, and to me that's a little disappointing. One of my worries with the first wave of this line was Hasbro kind of set the bar so high because we got figures with all kinds of accessories and details and everything, and so I was a little worried that as the series went on, we might see them start to skimp out on things like accessories and stuff, and I kind of have seen that with this wave. With Bespin Luke, I didn't mention it in my review, but I was a little disappointed that he didn't have the ability to have a servered hand. And with this figure, like I said, he's only comes with the one accessory, which is his lightsaber. Now he does have the hilt with the removable blade, like we've seen with the other Jedi characters in this line. And the hilt is nicely detailed, looks just like it did in the movie. Now one thing I noticed is with this figure, they basically added a little peg on the hilt of the lightsaber so it plugs into the hole on his belt. Now we've seen this done with the 3 1/4 inch line with their Star Wars figures, where they just do the little peg and it plugs in their belt. But that is, however, different from what we've seen with the other figures in this line. Like, for instance, Bespin Luke, he has a little hook on his belt where you hook the lightsaber on, and same with the X-Wing Luke. So I don't know which way I like better. I think it actually probably fits a little bit better on the figure with the little peg. It looks a little funny when you're looking at just the hilt with that peg sticking out, but but I kind of like it. With the Bespin Luke, even though it hooks on, it would kind of sometimes stick out with just the way it kind of fit on the hook. So I don't know which way I like better, but I just wanted to point out that the way they've done that lightsaber hilt and how it attaches to the figure is very similar to like what they did with the 3¼ inch line, as opposed to the previous 6-inch figures in this line. Articulation, our same standard kind of articulation that we've seen with the other Black Series figures. Now, one thing I also want to note, just another nice kind of cool detailing with the paint apps, is if you look closely in his hair, you can actually see some gray hair starting to come through, which I think is cool. Nice little added touch of detail. And you see it on both sides. But anyway, the head's attached to a ball joint, so he doesn't have a whole lot of back movement. It's on a hinged joint, but just with the way the head itself, if you want to, you can kind of like get him to look back, but it tends to come off the ball if you push it too far back, just with the way the head and the neck is sculpted. But he does have that hinge, and so he can definitely look down, and he can look left, and he can look right. He's got the standard ball hinge joints at the shoulder, so he can get his arms out pretty good, and he's got good rotation. He's got the swivel, single jointed elbows, so he's got pretty good bending at the elbows, and they're well hidden. The joints are hidden pretty decently with the way the tunic is sculpted, so it kind of comes out and covers the joint, which is nice. Now, he can't bend his arm at the elbow down very much. Of course, that wouldn't be very accurate anyway. So, and then he's got the swivel hinged wrists, just like we've seen with the other figures. He's got swivel at the waist, so he's got good rotation at the waist, and he does have some ab crunch there, so he can bend down a little bit more and back at the ab. Now the legs, he can do the splits about that much. Again, because it's soft goods on the sides of the tunic, it doesn't really prohibit too much getting his legs out. Same type of joint that we've seen with all the figures in this line. He's got the thigh twist, and then he's got the double jointed knees, so he's got good bending at the knees, and then he's got the ankle pivots at the boot. So, like I said, overall, this figure is pretty much same type of articulation we've seen with most of the figures in this wave, or in this series, and he's got a good range of movement. Okay, so another thing you can kind of do is the head, as I mentioned before, is attached to a ball joint. So if you want to like switch heads, like so say take your Luke Skywalker head from your X-Wing Luke and stick it on your Obi-Wan Kenobi body, you could kind of have a makeshift A New Hope type Luke, or at least like a Tatooine type Luke. Obviously it's not the same outfit, but it's close enough that if you kind of wanted to have, you were tired of waiting around for A New Hope Luke Skywalker figure, you could kind of make a makeshift one, or vice versa. If you wanted Obi-Wan to become an X-Wing fighter in the early days of the Rebellion or something, you could switch heads. Of course, Luke is a little bit shorter than Obi-Wan, so if you did that, you definitely would have a taller Luke or a shorter Obi-Wan in that case. But just something I wanted to point out. So scale-wise, the figure comes in at just about 6 inches tall. He is basically the same height as the Darth Maul figure from the first wave, so they're pretty similar in height. So it seems to be pretty movie accurate as far as scale goes. So that's my review. Overall, I don't think this is a horrible figure. I do think they need to fix the problem with the eyes, and I guess this could just be with my figure, but my guess is that all the figures are going to have similar issues with the eyes. It's just something that's really off and really throws the head sculpt off, or the face sculpt off on this figure. And then the only other real complaint I have is it would be nice if we had some additional accessories, like his robe would have been nice. hooded robe, a soft goods hooded robe would have been a nice addition, or maybe even something simple like his communicator, or something along those lines. But definitely, I think like a robe would have been really nice, a nice addition to this figure. But other than that, I think it's not a bad figure, especially if you like the prequel figures. I think you'll definitely want to pick this one up. So that does it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, I'll check you later.